Goofy in No Smoking is chaos of the best kind. This is a very erratic short where a lot happens in a very short space of time, and Goofy is wild, he is wired, he is desperate for his nicotine fix, but he has quit smoking. This was released in 1951, directed by Jack Kinney, obviously stars the voice of Pinto Colvig, and it starts off with some flashbacks with the kind of alleged origin of smoking. It's not obviously historically accurate. And then we flash forward to Goofy, who is playing this character called George. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why he wasn't just allowed to be Goofy. Maybe they wanted to separate the idea of Goofy and one of the main classic characters being a smoker, so they gave him a new name. I'm not sure. If that was the case, they could have just created a new character. I really don't know. But we see that this character is addicted to nicotine. He is smoking everything, constantly smoking. He decides to quit because he starts to feel unwell. But then everybody in the office around him is still smoking, of course. And sometimes they almost accidentally offer him one until they forget that he quit. He feels, not only does he feel kind of left out a bit, reminds me of that episode of Friends, the one where Rachel starts smoking. Not only does he feel left out a bit, but also he enjoyed smoking. He wants to smoke, and he kind of goes a bit crazy and goes in search for that nicotine hit on a kind of wild rampage. And there are all kinds of things that are getting in his way from having a cigarette. I'm not going to say how it ends, but I'll say that it's got an interesting kind of final line. There are various endings to this one. It was initially not on television, and then it was, with a slightly different ending. So the message they're giving, though, for me, I can see the message as being you should quit and you should try and stop quitting now. But the other message that I see is that you shouldn't take up smoking in general, because if you try to quit, you're going to lose your mind. Obviously, that's not necessarily true, particularly in today's age when there are all kinds of products to help people quit. And people move on to vaping and things. I don't know if Disney have ever done vaping. I can't imagine they would have done nowadays, so certainly. But back in the day, I can see them collaborating with a vape brand to promote vaping as a quote-unquote healthier, I don't know who I'm quoting, healthier alternative to cigarettes. They're not. But I can see it as being a kind of don't start smoking video rather than a you should quit smoking video. Obviously, there are some mixed messages with regards to Goofy wanting to give up and then realizing that he will be left out and etc. etc. So you could read a lot of different things into this, and I think depending on what you want to get out of it and what you want to read into it, you could get something different. But ultimately, the moral is pretty clear. You will be crazed like Goofy or this character if you take up smoking, so don't bother doing it. I think, as I said, he's quite erratic in this. It's all over the place in a really good way. You can really feel the tension, the desperation. I think the pace of this is brilliant. It does feel smoky. You can kind of feel, I don't smoke, I never have smoked, and I never will smoke. It's something I detest. And you can kind of just feel choked by that in this with certain animations. It's, I think it's really well done. I think it comes across really well. I enjoyed it. I'm not the biggest fan of Goofy as a character. For one of his shorts to be something that moves me really well, it has to be really good, and I think that this one is. I think the fact that it started with a more historical or pseudo-historical approach, it just gives it a little bit more depth, makes it a little bit more well-rounded. I think the journey the character goes on is really good. Ultimately, it's a really interesting narrative. Pinto Colvig, who voiced Goofy, actually died of lung cancer. Several years after this, of course, as does Walt Disney, so I think it's a pretty powerful message in that regard, and the people involved were eventually heavily affected by this, which makes it, I think, all the more important. I don't know if when they were making this, it affected them. Did Pinto Colvig at any point think, I will stop smoking now? Maybe he wasn't even smoking at this point, I don't know. But the people making this must have felt some kind of, it must have moved them in a way, especially if they were smoking heavily and were ill and they were getting signs of, early stages of diseases and things. I don't know. But certainly, from an entertainment perspective, it's very good as an animation. It's very well edited. Obviously really well animated. I can't fault it. Goofy and no smoking is pretty powerful.